Hiring a contractor is a pretty daunting task for a lot of people, and not everybody's going to be able to finish their basement on their own. And I got an email a few weeks ago from a viewer, Dev, shout out to Dev, thanks so much, asking me some questions about whether I would go and finish his basement because he was really concerned about hiring a contractor that might screw him over. Now, I'm not a contractor anymore. I'm almost the anti-contractor. And Dev lives close enough that it made sense for me to go, and I offered to help out a little, but we're still talking. That's not here or there. But he made a really good point that a lot of people are concerned that they're going to hire a contractor that's going to screw them over. And I thought, why don't I have a chat with you, the internet, and really get into how you look for a good contractor. What are the qualities you want in a contractor, and what are the telltale signs that that is something that you want and that somebody you're going to hire, and what are the things you shouldn't do? There are things you shouldn't do as a client. And I want to start by first talking about what is a contractor. So there's a couple of ends of this, right? There's the general contractor, which is the guy who, or person, I should say, because there are more women in the trades, and I encourage any woman who wants to get in the trades to please do it, or gentlemen who have daughters, please teach them. We need good people. It doesn't matter what gender. And so a general contractor will be somebody who subcontracts a lot of the work. They may have people that work for them, or they may do the work. Typically, they're doing some of the carpentry work. They're filling the gaps. They're doing the site maintenance, the cleaning, the protection against dust. They're doing the logistics of managing between the trades. But mostly they're carpenters, because carpenters really get exposed to having to prep for all the other trades and knowing what's coming after them. And they may have a few employees. They may not. They may strictly do management. But typically you're going to have a little bit of staff, and then all the sub trades that they work with probably on a regular basis. So they make their money, one, through their own labor and markup, but two, through marking up the trades that come through. Their overhead is typically going to be higher. They may or may not have a shop. They may or may not have vehicles for their employees, uniforms, tools, insurance, blah, blah, blah. The bigger company there is, the more overhead there's going to be. With that being said, ideally you would hope that the expectation of good quality is there as well. Now, on the other end of the spectrum is sort of the one-man show. One-person show who kind of does a little bit of everything. Where I live in Ontario, Canada, you cannot do electrical or plumbing or HVAC if you are not licensed. So those things are out of the question. But, tile, drywall, painting, that person will do a lot of those. Now, you will hear people say, I'm good at everything. We all know that it's very hard to be good at everything. I have some friends who are super talented, and they are, but they are very, very few. So if somebody comes out and says, hey, I'm good at everything, and they show you pictures, remember they're just pictures. So that's the difference. There's a spectrum there between those. Now, let's talk a little bit about what you're looking for, okay? Let's dispel the myth immediately that you're going to have a stress-free renovation. You're going to spend thousands of dollars. There's going to be expectations. There are going to be miscommunications sometimes. It's going to have its moments of stress. So let's accept that that's part of the process. Given that you're going to have that stress, you want a contractor who is going to spend time educating you, collaborating, communicating, and being accountable when things aren't always the way they should be. People make mistakes. It's an industry where mistakes can be corrected, right? And if they make a mistake, it shouldn't come at your cost. Now, there's other things that can't be foreseen. We'll save that for another time. So those are qualities you want to have because you are working with someone. As much as you are paying them, they are trying to take your vision and make it real. So, or guide you along the path. Guidance, navigation, helping you understand, helping you through this, helping the stressful times. What I felt I needed to do as a contractor, I had seen many renovations. I had done tons of them. I knew how they were going to look at the end. But somebody who doesn't have that experience, they don't see that. They don't have that confidence. I need to take the confidence that I have born of proven ability that we had done things and share that with them and let them know, hey, we're going to get through this. This is going to work out. It's going to turn out the way you want. Okay, you want to change X, Y, Z? Great. We'll handle all of that. It's important to have somebody who's going to be a leader in that moment when things are going wrong. Now, how do you build trust with a contractor that you don't know? Let's take, for example, out of the equation that you have done your homework on this contractor. You've looked at all their social channels. Their pictures look great. You've looked at their Google reviews. They're all good. Maybe you've even gotten references. Now, with regards to references, I'll say this. Don't be upset if a contractor won't give you references, because I've had clients who they don't want strangers calling them. I've had clients or prospective clients say, oh, can we go through some of your projects? Think about it. I renovate your house. I renovate your basement. And I say, hey, can one of my prospective clients walk through your house at dinner time and go through your house and pick it apart because they might hire me? Like, that's a lot to ask. That's what Google reviews are for. So don't be upset. Now, you've gone through all that. You've found a contractor or a few. Maybe you're getting multiple quotes, which is totally a good idea. How do you assess what's a good contractor? How do they establish trust? They establish trust by how they do business. That is the number one thing you are looking at, how they do business. You want a professional, which means you have to be professional and not personal. I know it's your house, but be a pro. We'll get to that later when the parts of the things you shouldn't be doing. So you have these contractors providing you quotes. They come by. Number one is you want to look at their brand or how they present themselves to you in a professional way. Do they show up on time? If they're not on time, do they call ahead? Do they have a vehicle with a logo or a website or a contact number on it? Do they have uniforms? When they talk to you, are they pleasant? When they walk in your house, do they say, do I keep my boots on or take them off? A lot of people would tell me like, oh, don't worry about it. I'm like, you don't know where my boots have been. And I can't remember where they've been. So there's this thing called acoustic seal we refer to as Black Death. And if I step in it and I track it through your house, nobody's going to be happy about that. So you want to pay attention to those parts of how they do business. What's their website like? Now, these are all little things. Not every company has a uniform. Not everybody has a logo on your truck. But you're paying attention to how they do business, their professionalism. It's not important whether you like them or not. Your gut feeling, sure. But it doesn't matter if you want to go for a beer with them or have a cup of coffee with them. Lots of people like me. It doesn't mean all my projects have gone perfect. It doesn't mean that my staff and myself have not made mistakes, but we're accountable. That's established through trust. Even then, people don't know that I'm going to stop and do the right thing. Even up to the moment that the confrontation, quote unquote, may happen, they're nervous. They don't know. They've heard horror stories, as we all have, and they're not sure. Are we going to do the right thing? Are we going to stand by our work? Which we do. This is what you do as just a good person, right? And none of the contractors I know are trying to screw somebody over. They don't wake up and go, man, got a quote today. Can't wait to pull the wool over this person's eyes. No, it's a hard business. It's not easy to do. It's not always complex, but that doesn't mean it's easy. And it takes a lot of skill and experience. And often there are things out of our control, like supply chain and people getting sick. But we'll talk about that in another video. So we've talked about brand. Let's talk about, say, their administrative process. So that's the next thing you're going to be judging along the way. What do their quotes look like? How are they corresponding with you? Is it professional? What does the contract look like? Do they have a contract? If they don't have a contract and you're having a $50,000, $100,000 renovation and there's no agreement of your responsibilities and their responsibilities, to me, that's a gray area that needs to get taken care of. Because as a contractor, my contract was there to protect me as much from you, the client, as it is protect you, the client, from me. Because you'll hear a lot of horror stories of contractors, taking clients' money and running. I've had a few clients screw me over, And that's not nice. Like imagine going home to your wife and saying, hey, not getting paid because the person decided they're just not going to pay me because of X, Y, and Z. And it's not enough money for me to get a lawyer involved. So I'm just going to eat it. That happens. And I'm not going to get into details. It hasn't happened a lot, once or twice in, 13 years of running a business, but it happens. So be aware that that contract is in place mostly to protect me from you. So be it very critical of the details within it. Read it. Be sure it's understandable. Be sure you know your responsibilities because it's not always there to help you. Now, you've paid attention to how they do business. You're in the midst of saying, I'm going to hire this company. Before you do that, I think there's 3 really critical questions you want to ask that are going to set the tone for what you're doing. So you can ask this of all the companies, you can ask this of the one company, but these are the 3 questions. Okay. Number 1, how can I expect the communication to be done? How frequent is it going to be? What method is it going to be? How are we going to do this? Because I had clients often where I would be starting work at 8:30, 9 o'clock, and they worked out of town. So they work an hour away, an hour and a half away. They're leaving at 7. They're coming back at 6. I'm not seeing them. They're coming home. They're seeing the work and they're sending me emails, right? We got to figure out how we're going to communicate, how we're going to continue to maintain the trust. So pictures, updates, all that kind of stuff. There's a ton of softwares out there now. And we were using one called Contractor that inside of that platform was a portal, a client portal where all communication was held. No texting, no emails. It was all in the portal. So there was no confusion as to what was discussed. Every day, our project manager, Charlotte, who is magic, she was great. She updated clients every day. Even on the days where nothing was happening, there would be an email or a message within the portal that said, hey, just a reminder, nothing's happening today. We'll be there tomorrow. Here's some updates on these things, materials, whatever. Or anything we've talked about, or just a reminder, we have to select paint by this date. She was amazing at it, and she still is. And the company is just going to do better and better things because she really does a great job. She's also a red seal carpenter, which is incredible. So that's what you want to ask. How often can I expect to hear from you? What's going to be included in that? When we have errors or mistakes, how are we going to deal with that? Because it's going to happen. They're not going to be major. They can be fixed. Or you come home and the house is a mess. You don't want those things. So you want to know how they're going to communicate. Because the last thing you want is to be reaching out and nothing's happening. When I'm done work at 6 o'clock, I'm putting my phone away. I'm not checking emails, none of that. And that's my time. That's my family time. We'll talk about that after. But let's carry on. Question number 2. When unexpected issues arrive or changes occur, what is your process to deal with this? Contractors have a process. I had a process. All good contractors have processes. Whether it's written out, I don't know. But our process was very, very simple, and we drilled it into our employees. We do not approve anything verbally. We do not say, we're going to do this. Yeah, no problem. We'll take care of it, and send them a bill later for an undetermined price. What we did was, within these softwares that we used, and we used one called CoConstruct. I don't know if I said that earlier. All our change orders are there. So more often than not, what would happen is the client would decide to add work or change something that involved additional work, which meant expanding the budget and expanding the timeline. So we would not do anything. We would put together a price. We would send it to them through the portal with the software, and they had to click the approval button before we proceeded with anything. Because that way, the client is only paying for what they asked to have done, and we are getting paid for what we're doing. And there's no miscommunication as to what that is because we're putting it all through the software. So maybe a follow-up would be asking the contractor, what software do you use? How are we going to do change orders? When an unforeseen happens or something like, say, somebody dings a wire or There's something in the wall that wasn't supposed to be there, right? Because we don't have x-ray vision. We can't see inside the wall. We worked in a neighborhood where we worked in two separate houses, and there was the same model and they were built differently. We couldn't have known that. There's no way. And based on our previous experience, we're like, oh, there's nothing in this wall. And then you open it up and somebody decided, oh, on this wall they were going to put all the ductwork when they shouldn't have, when in the other house it was in another wall. So it's very hard to see through walls. So you're going to have occasionally things like that. You want to know how they handle it, right? The last question I want you to ask is, throughout the process, what measures are they going to take to mitigate or eliminate the mess and the dust? How are they going to run the site? We took measures like laying ram board to protect the floors and putting plastic up with zippers on it over the doorways and covering the return air vents so that it didn't suck dust into their furnace. And if we did, we would then replace the furnace filter. We didn't always do that. That was one I learned later on. Some companies have dust extractors, so they put the dust extractor in there. There's a whole bunch of things that they can do. Now, if you're working from home, you're going to see all of these, but you want to know going in, what measures do you take? Some jobs, it's hard. There's no measures you can take, but those tend to be smaller ones. But hey, you want to ask, because if they go, we just kind of wing it, or not a good answer. Okay, you want somebody who's going to be courteous, respect your house. Remember I said earlier, if somebody's going to be late and they call, hey, that's a good move. If they're late and they don't call, if they're 2 minutes late, okay. If they're 20 minutes late and they don't call, that's not cool. You just want somebody who's courteous. You want someone who's professional. Let's talk about the do's and don'ts of what you as a client should not be doing, okay? I learned over the years to not allow clients to text me, because often, and this is my own fault because I'm likable and I like people and I never want to say the wrong thing, and it took me a while to set boundaries, but I would get clients calling me, hey, I'm just at Home Depot, just wondering your thoughts on this. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, yo, dude, it's Saturday. I'm with my kids. I thought this was an emergency. But I said, we could talk about this on Monday. I'm just out. Oh, sorry, no problem. I'll text you later. And I was like, the boundaries are set. Work happens from X hour to X hour. Now, some contractors will answer emails and phone calls later on. For me personally, I have a young family still, and that time is theirs. You don't want your boss texting you at 10 at night. Don't think, okay, I'm going to text them. They're not going to look at it. Like, maybe they're not with their phone. They don't have to do anything. I just want to text it to them while I remember. Don't. Make a note. Put it in your phone. Set in a reminder for the morning and send it then. So, because we don't need our personal time interrupted. Now, what happens if you come home and there's something you don't like? Something that is not the way you expected it. Do not go keyboard worrying, okay? Don't get super aggressive. Don't get personal. I know it's your house. It's a very personal thing, but it's business. Be a pro. You want them to be a pro. And if they are not professional, we'll address that later. But that doesn't mean you should be unprofessional, right? Expectations go both ways. So be articulate. I always prefer dealing with issues over the phone and following up with an email. Now, let's say you get home and it's not how you want it. Say in an email, something to the lines of, I just got home. I saw some things that are a little concerning to me. Could we block off some time tomorrow morning when you get here to either chat in person or chat on the phone so that these don't happen again? Do not let any issues that are bothering you fester. If it bothers you right away, ask for clarification. This is where the education part of being a contractor comes in. You need them to make you feel better about what's happening. If a mistake was made, then you need them to be accountable and not do it again. Good contractors don't sit there and go, oh, that's the electrician's fault. Oh, that's my guy's fault. You hired the company. It's the company's fault. And if they go skirting that to somebody else, That's not good accountability. That's not good leadership. I never did that because I didn't want my employees, which I only had a handful at any given time, thinking it was okay to blame someone else. If I want them to be accountable, I got to be accountable. So ask for clarification. Say, set aside some time. I really want to address this now so that we can be confident going forward that we're on the right path. Do not make it personal. Do not start saying things really aggressive in an email. You don't need to be. You signed the check. So if things don't go the way you want, you don't pay. You don't need to threaten that. That's just a reality, right? If they get all, oh, there's that, and they say, oh, well, okay. This isn't what the parameters of our contract are. This isn't within the scope of work. This was not my expectations being met. I think we'll need to reassess what we're doing here. Be a pro. And so don't go keyboard worrying. The thing that really got me, and this is point number 3, is when people say, there's something I'm unhappy with. That's personal. That means I've hurt your feelings. I've insulted you. That's not what I'm doing. I'm working. What I want you to think about saying is, as we said, be a pro. There's something that isn't up to par. It doesn't meet my standards. It's not to the standards that I was under the impression you were going to be delivering. I would like to discuss this. Keep it professional. Even though it's hard, like it's emotional. It's stressful. But keep it professional, because if you go keyboard warrior or being ultra aggressive, nowadays there aren't that many good contractors out there. And if you sour that relationship, you still got to be together. And I'm not saying they're holding you hostage. I'm saying you're collaborating. So find common ground, clear up the miscommunication, keep it on track, and continue to move forward. Now, let's discuss if they are not meeting expectations, if they are not doing what's defined in their contract and their quote, if the expectations are suddenly being skirted, okay? Fire them. Make it clear. Look, these are the expectations under the terms of our contract. If you do not meet those expectations, they'll simply terminate the contract. Don't bring out the big guns right away. But at the same time, make a point. Like you're in charge. You work together, yes. But you pay. So that's your trump card. I'm not saying beat them over the head with it. But don't continue to work with somebody who is disrespecting the process and not being professional. And just operate in those terms. I expected this to be a professionally done job. You are not meeting those expectations. And delineate it. If you're going to verbalize it, make sure you put it in writing as well. Send it to them. Sayonara. Okay? Make sure there's a paper trail of everything you're saying, because that prevents miscommunications or misunderstandings. That's why the softwares with the client portals are so great, because you're both seeing it. There's nobody go, oh, I didn't get that email. Oh, I didn't read it. Yeah, well, it's on the portal. And that's your responsibility since it's your portal as the contractor. Okay? So I hope this really puts your mind at ease and gives you a little bit of ammunition to understand what you should be looking for when you're hiring a contractor and how that builds trust, and to find somebody who is going to help you in the process and navigate the process and have a successful experience. You want a good experience. It isn't just the product. Tons of guys can do good product. But if they're a jerk, if they leave your house a mess, if it's sort of this dumpster fire along the way, and then you're like, oh, I look good, but my thing was, I live in a small area. There's a good chance that some of the clients I have, their kids are going to be on my kids' soccer team or baseball team or go to the same school. I don't want that hanging over me. I don't want any of that. I like easy. I like happy. So I want to be able to live with myself. It's about me, right? Unfortunately, at the end of the day, I needed to walk away knowing I did everything we could to make that successful and a good experience. Even if there's bumps in the road, I had a client who expressed something very, very well that I really appreciated. We were having some bumps in the road, and in her email, she said, "I'm finding this situation very frustrating." And I thought, what a great way to tell me that you're stressed out. This is upsetting, but you're not making it personal, and you're not making it about me. And I went out of my way to tell her that I really appreciated that when I saw her, because I'm going in and out of their house. Like, you're doing somebody's basement, you're there for 2-3 months. They're seeing me almost every day. So it really made a difference. And it made me want to continue to deliver good work and not begrudge them when I'm like, man, I got to make this great so they don't yell at me. I want to work for people that I want to make it great for them because they're good people and they're nice to me and they treat me well. And I want to return that because that's what I'm putting out as a business, or what I was. I'm not a business anymore. So unfortunately, if any of you are going to email me asking me to finish your basement, I'm not in that business anymore. But I may need some things to do some how-tos. So I'm going to leave that for now. But anyhow, I hope this really helped you, again, understand what it means to hire a good contractor and how to go about it. As always, I want to thank you for spending some time with me, and good luck on your project.